I'm going to tell you about a mistake that will cost you everything you have built in your entire life. And I'm going to tell you exactly how they disguise it to look like love. But before I reveal the one sentence buried in the fine print that turns your own front door into a trap, you need to sit still and understand how the machine works. Because if you don't understand the machine, you will feed yourself into it with a smile on your face and thank the people who pushed you in. Last Tuesday, at 8 o'clock in the morning, before the dew had dried on the magnolias outside my kitchen window, my youngest son David walked into my house with a man I had never invited. David is 55 years old. He has never once in his adult life knocked on my front door without wanting something he could not afford. This time he brought a notary, a white man in a cheap gray suit who smelled like drugstore cologne and entitlement, already uncapping a fountain pen before I had finished pouring my morning tea. David laid 3 pages on my marble countertop and called them a simple tax formality. He said it would spare us all the headache of probate court. He said the government would take my house if I didn't sign. He held my hand with a tenderness he has never once shown me when money was not involved. And the notary, this Mr. Peterson, stood behind him nodding like a metronome, waiting for the old black woman to do what old black women have been conditioned to do for 400 years on this continent. Comply without reading. They picked the wrong woman. I did not raise my voice. I did not argue. I removed my hand from David's grip, put on my thick acetate glasses, and I read every single word on those 3 pages while both of them stood in my kitchen, shifting their weight from foot to foot like children caught stealing from a collection plate. And what I found in Clause 7 was not a tax shield. It was not protection. It was not love dressed up in legal language. It was a foreclosure warrant disguised as filial affection. That document, that harmless little family formality, would have transferred the deed of my 3-acre estate in Atlanta directly into David's name, making it immediately subject to seizure by his creditors. My son was not trying to protect me from the government. My son was trying to use my home as a life raft for his drowning finances, and he needed my signature to tie the rope around my own neck. Now I need you to pay very close attention to what I am about to say, because this is not just my story. This is happening right now, today, in kitchens and living rooms and nursing home lobbies across this country. And the people it happens to the most are people who look like me. Black families in America have been terrorized by the word probate for generations. The system taught us that if we die without the right paperwork, the government swoops in and takes our land. And that fear, that deep, inherited, bone-level terror of losing the little bit of earth we managed to hold on to after everything that was done to us, that fear is the exact weapon they use against us. They don't need chains anymore. They have quitclaim deeds. They don't need overseers. They have notaries like Peterson who make their living convincing elderly black homeowners that signing away their property is an act of self-preservation. The system was not broken by accident. It was engineered carefully over centuries to ensure that the wealth we build does not survive us. And the cruelest part is that it uses our own children as the delivery mechanism. Do not look away from that truth because it is uncomfortable. Comfort is the anesthesia they administer right before the amputation. Let me tell you what David actually needed that signature for, because understanding his desperation is the first wall of your education. My son, the self-proclaimed investment consultant, whose only real client has ever been my patients, had been making leveraged bets on commercial real estate with money he did not have. He suffered a massive margin call. His brokerage was demanding liquid collateral by Friday, or they would initiate personal bankruptcy proceedings. David needed to register my house, my sanctuary, my fortress, on his balance sheet as a net asset to prove solvency. That is what the simple family document was for. Not taxes, not probate, not protection. It was a tourniquet for his financial hemorrhage, and he wrapped it in the language of a son who cares about his mother's legacy. And Peterson, the notary, the man whose entire professional obligation is to ensure that signatories understand what they are signing and are not under duress. This man looked at my gray hair and my dark skin and assumed I could not read a contract. He assumed my age was a synonym for ignorance. He assumed my blackness was a certificate of legal illiteracy. He did not ask me a single question about whether I understood the document. He did not ask me if I had independent legal counsel. He did not ask me if anyone was pressuring me. He stood in my kitchen and waited for me to be the stereotype that pays his commission. But before I tell you what I did to dismantle their entire operation, you need to understand the third predator in my house that morning, because she is the one most of you will never see coming. While David and Peterson were performing their rehearsed routine in my kitchen, I noticed Caroline, David's second wife, in my living room. She was not sitting. She was not waiting politely. She was moving through my home with her smartphone held at hip level, taking photographs. My Romare Bearden prints, my Persian rugs, my grandmother's hand-carved mahogany bookcase. She was cataloging my possessions with the quiet efficiency of an estate liquidator. Caroline was not there to support her husband. Caroline was there to inventory the auction. She had already calculated the after-death, or rather, the after-eviction value of my life's collection, and she was building the spreadsheet before the ink was dry on a document I had not signed. This is what I need you to understand about family predators. They do not announce themselves. They do not wear signs. They smile at Thanksgiving. They bring sweet potato pie to your birthday. They call you Mama, and they mean it the way a locksmith means it when he says he is there to help you get back inside your house. They are already inside. They have been studying the locks for years. If you are sitting here right now, recognizing your own family in this story, if you feel that cold knot forming in your stomach because someone you love has been a little too interested in your paperwork lately, type strength in the comments right now. Not because I need your engagement, because you need to make a decision right now about whether you are going to keep being the person things happen to or become the person who decides what happens. Let me tell you what I did. I did not argue with David in my kitchen. I did not cry. I did not beg. I picked up that document, folded it in half with a precision that made Peterson's smile die on his face, and I told them both that my corporate attorney would review their formality within 48 hours. Peterson tried to protest, tried to tell me there was a filing deadline, tried to manufacture urgency, because urgency is the oldest tool in the fraud playbook. I dismissed him with one gesture of my hand, one, and both of them left my house carrying the silence of men who have just realized the old woman is not confused. She is furious. The next morning, I activated my private intelligence firm. I have had them on retainer for 11 years, because when you are a black woman who has built wealth in this country, you learn very early that the price of your peace is eternal vigilance. Within 24 hours, they delivered a forensic sweep of David's financial life that read like a criminal indictment, pending court judgments, delinquent margin accounts, 2 private creditors circling his assets like vultures over a carcass. If I had signed that document, the IRS and those creditors would have placed a lien on my home by the following morning. My right to sell, refinance, or even remain in my own house would have been frozen solid. I would have been legally trapped inside a property I no longer controlled, waiting for strangers in suits to tell me when I had to leave. By day 4, the terror campaign began. David and Caroline launched a coordinated psychological assault. Phone calls every hour, sobbing voice messages, accusing me of destroying the grandchildren's future over my paranoid stubbornness. Text messages designed to weaponize my maternal instinct, because they know that for women like me, the guilt of being called a bad grandmother is a blade sharper than any legal filing. They tried to use my love as the key to my cage. On day 5, David escalated beyond emotional manipulation into something I want every person watching this to memorize, because this is the moment when the mask always falls. He came to my home office on Thursday night. He locked the mahogany door behind him, and he screamed. He pounded his fists on my desk and demanded that I sign. He told me the house was his right. He told me I owed him. The careful son, the concerned facilitator, the man with the rehearsed smile, was gone. Standing in front of me was the raw, unfiltered face of someone who sees your property as his inheritance and your continued existence as an inconvenience. I let him finish. I let every word land on the surface of my composure without making a single crack. And then I stood up from my chair, pressed the button on the visible security recorder mounted on my desk, and I showed him a document. Not his document, mine. That afternoon, while David was busy rehearsing his Thursday night performance, I had signed a real document. But it was not a quitclaim deed. It was not a transfer of property to a family member. I transferred the full ownership of my house, every room, every acre, every painting on the walls, and every rug on the floors, into a qualified personal residence trust managed by an irrevocable fiduciary board in Nevada. The house is no longer mine in any legal sense that a creditor can reach. It is held in a structure so airtight that no family member, no court judgment, no margin call, and no notary with a fountain pen can touch it. David's simple document became worthless ash the moment my signature hit that trust agreement. But I was not finished. I handed David a second piece of paper. This one was a copy of the federal complaint my attorney filed against Mr. Peterson with the state notary board for attempted fraud by misrepresentation against an elderly person. Peterson will lose his license. The investigation will expose every other elderly homeowner he has guided into signing away their sovereignty. And David, my youngest son, will now face his bankruptcy alone, with his own money, his own sweat, and his own consequences. He will not use my bones as the scaffolding for his recovery. Now here is the master secret I told you I would reveal. The one thing that separates the people who lose everything from the people who keep it. It is not the trust. It is not the lawyer. It is not the money. It is the moment you decide in your own body, in your own nervous system, that your survival is not negotiable. The document was never the real threat. The real threat was the belief that saying no to your own child makes you a bad mother. The real threat was the guilt, the fear of being called selfish, the terror of dying alone because you chose your house over your son's love. That is the weapon. That is the thing they sharpen in the dark and slide between your ribs while hugging you. And the master secret is this. The love that requires you to destroy yourself to prove it is not love. It is a hostage negotiation, and you are the hostage. I am 80 years old. My blood pressure is steady. My cortex is clear. My home is mine, not because the law says so. The law almost failed me. It is mine because I decided decades ago that no one, not the system, not my own blood, not the weight of 4 centuries of someone else's opinion about what my skin means, would stand between me and the ground I earned. I feed my brain what it needs to stay sharp, because staying sharp is not vanity at my age. It is warfare. I train my body because a strong body houses a mind that cannot be bullied into compliance. I read contracts because literacy is the first line of defense against people who profit from your confusion. I did not survive 80 years of navigating a country that was not built for me to be undone by a 3-page document and a man who shares my last name. So here is what I need you to do. I need you to go home tonight and find every document you have signed in the last 5 years that a family member told you was simple. I need you to read every single line. And if you find something that does not make sense, you call an independent attorney, not your cousin's lawyer, not the nice man from church, an independent fiduciary attorney who is legally bound to represent your interests and no one else's. You do this tomorrow, not next week, not after the holidays, tomorrow, because the people who want what you have are not waiting. They are already uncapping the pen. Tell me in the comments right now which document your family tried to slide across your kitchen table. Tell me what they called it. Tell me what smile they wore while they did it, because your story might save someone else from losing their home, their land, and their dignity to a piece of paper they were told not to worry about. And if you are not ready to talk about it yet, that is fine. But do not you dare close this screen and go back to pretending it cannot happen to you. It already almost did. You just haven't read the fine print yet.